Everyone wants to be cool. We encounter certain people and brands, and we wonder to ourselves just how the hell do they do it? It would appear that the more we seem to try, the less cool we actually end up becoming. We're going to devise a comprehensive formula, a science, so that you can take it and replicate the exact same effect in your own personal brand. Without further ado, let's get right into this. The first question to ask is, can we actually define what the word cool means? Because it's very much like these other words, such as brand or aesthetic, that we like to throw around, but nobody knows actually what the hell they mean. Being cool is just simply embodying a set of values, traits, or aesthetics so compellingly that other people want to associate with it. This is where people get it wrong. They think all you need to do is adopt a certain set of values or viewpoints, act in a specific way, or look a certain way. But this is where it starts to get a bit confusing, because you have the guy, the top of funnel guy, who's like standing around trying to aura farm, and he's trying too hard, right? You can see he's kind of there flexing the drip and his Bentley or whatever. He's on the phone trying to be nonchalant. And we would say that people like this, kind of like the gurus, and they're flexing everything all of the time. We would say that that is cringe, right? That's not cool, it's cringe. But if we go over to someone else who's just kind of confident in what they do, they don't really care, like, they're not really trying at all, it's just kind of who they are, well, we would say that that's inspiring. It's not cringe at all. And so this really brings us to the paradox of cool. Cool people don't seem like they're trying to be cool at all. I like to say here that effort comes before effortless, literally the way it's spelled. You have to be putting in effort before you can get to a level where you can do it kind of unconsciously. Because the people that you find cool, you'd be surprised that they put in an awful lot of work behind the scenes that you don't ever really see. So I'll use Daniel Dalen here as an example, right? Everybody agrees that Daniel Dalen's just a really cool guy, but if you've seen the video where he breaks down his kind of formula and the way that he tackles his content, like, this is so in-depth. Like, he's going through all of this random, really small details and stuff, things that would never cross your mind when you're watching the final products. There is a lot of thought and intention going into everything that he puts in his videos. The same can be said for cool characters in movies, video games, and other pieces of media. Here's some of my favorites from across the years that I would say are definitely considered cool. They spend so much time writing them, finding the right actors to actually represent them, doing the costume design, writing everything in the script to be really meticulous so they appear a certain way. Like, they put in an awful lot of effort to create these characters to appear as cool. It's not really any different for you. So you understand that you have to try, okay? You have to try in order to look like you're not trying. But then it's like, well, how the hell do you do that? How do you try without looking like you're trying? This is the biggest mystery. This is why everybody seems to struggle with finally getting that end result and appearing as effortlessly cool. Fortunately, there was a guy in the Renaissance era about 600 years ago that wrote a book actually detailing how to do this. And this man was called Baldassare Castiglione. He was a courtier in the Italian Renaissance, and he writes this book, and it was aptly named the Book of the Courtier. And in the book, he keeps going back to this concept, this word that he uses called sprezzatura, which we can kind of loosely translate to studied nonchalance. That's essentially the closest translation we can get in English for this word, not in the kind of bro thinks he's nonchalant way, don't get it twisted. The great news here is we can take the teachings of a 16th century Italian courtier to basically be effortlessly cool with our personal brands in the modern day. So how exactly do we embody this sprezzatura? How do we have this sort of effortless air around us? Well, let's break down exactly how to do it. The first aspect of having sprez is concealing art. That's the primary goal of it, is to conceal the design and conceal all of the hours of study and learning that have gone behind whatever it is that you're demonstrating in the moment. It's the idea that the highest form of competence is when you're able to make something just look natural. In the book, he talks about fighters where they can just sort of slip into a stance and it look effortless. Riders, when they can sort of sit on the saddle in a non-stiff way, it's just kind of their body leans into it on its own. Dancers where they don't look like they're counting their steps at all. They're just kind of fluttering around the room in that sort of graceful way. So it's when it just looks natural. Because when obvious effort is detected, suddenly it becomes way less impressive. You're like, oh yeah, well, it's only natural that this guy would be at this level after putting in all that work. But when they don't have that added context, suddenly it's kind of like, whoa. Now, just a side note when it comes to concealing design and concealing effort, should you always do this? Well, I would say no, actually. I would argue against the theory in this book. It's actually highly contextual. You want to do this sometimes, but not in every situation. Let me explain. Now, here is a book you may be a bit more familiar with. Obviously, Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. There is this idea in his book that essentially if you want to amaze people, you want to enthrall people, you want to hide all of the effort that actually went behind reaching to the level that you're at today. So a great example of this is like Arnold back in the 80s, where he just kind of appeared out of nowhere as like this bodybuilding champion, and suddenly he's this big Hollywood star as well. And people used to interview Arnold and be like, how did you just randomly come to America and get to this level of success like so easily? And he was just kind of like, I don't know, like I have no idea. And he wasn't talking about all of the effort that was going behind what he was doing. He was in the gym every single day, 6 days a week. He was trying his hardest to actually learn a bit of English, to actually get past all of the media and get into his acting jobs. There was an awful lot of effort that went into what Arnold achieved. He just never talked about it. But there is a situation where you don't really want to hide the effort behind what you're doing. So you actually want to inspire people, and to inspire people, you have to show the effort. You have to show that, it's going to take some hard work, but you too can get to the level that I'm at. I would say the best way that you can sort of distinguish between when you should enthrall, which is conceal effort, and when you should seek to inspire by showing your effort, it depends on these two main things. First of all, it depends on the kind of content we're making. So it's going to depend on whereabouts in the funnel the content that you're making is. So if it's top of funnel, you want to be enthralling and amazing people to get them into your ecosystem. Hide the effort, seek to enthrall. When you get towards the middle of funnel and bottom of funnel though, that's when you want to kind of be a bit more transparent about what it is that you do and how you've got to the level that you're at, because you want to get people on board, right? You want to actually sell them. And in addition to that, a concept that I don't see people talk about enough is the idea of the messaging hierarchy, or Diotima's ladder. As you can see, Diotima is holding a ladder. You got to look at the detail on this. Look, she's like actually holding the ladder. I'm simply just referring to something that's based on this old philosophical concept. You can look it up if you want, but essentially it just reflects the idea that as you go up this ladder, different things appeal to you. So it's talked about in the concept of relationships. At the very bottom of the ladder, you're just kind of concerned with the physical appearance. But as you go up, you start to learn more about beauty and forms and knowledge and all of these kind of advanced concepts that most people aren't really going to understand. That's when you go up the ladder. So how does this apply to content? Well, we can look at Daniel Dalen again, because he's just a great example, to be honest. His brand's really dialed in. He might start off his content, specifically like his long form videos, by kind of showing the fun lifestyle that he has, showing off his Porsche, showing off Hong Kong, showing off the cool stuff he's going to do. And that's how he starts the video. Now, you might think, oh, this guy is just trying to flex or whatever. But as we go deeper into the video, he starts to show you what's actually going on behind the scenes, how much work he does, how boring most of his days actually are. And there's only really those highlights. But he captures you at the start by showing you the cool lifestyle. And it's only then, as you go deeper into the video, he shows you the hard work behind it. Because if he was just trying to show you the hard work at the beginning, you would not care. You'd be like, this is boring. But he's enthralling you at the beginning. That's what hooks you into the rest of the content. And then he's able to show you the rest of the stuff behind the scenes, because you're going up that messaging hierarchy. You're getting to the point where you realize, oh, so this actually makes sense. So it kind of, there's levels to this, if you get what I mean. Another great example of this is Jonathan B's lectures and stuff. He's a great example of using the messaging hierarchy in his content. We can look at just one of his videos here, like where he's talking about Machiavelli. He's like, power will cost you everything. And it's all like, wow, this is so tough. But he actually jokes about him doing this in the lecture. So you look at that, and then you actually watch the video, and you realize, wait a second. This guy's just a chill, like, funny, very smart guy talking about Machiavelli. He starts out the content by this kind of extreme angle on things. When you start going along the messaging hierarchy, more and more of it starts to make sense. But if he was trying to be all positive and nice and, chill at the start of the video with the packaging, it wouldn't really make as much sense to you. So it's kind of hooking you in, and you go down that hierarchy. Wow, that was a lot of talk about concealing design. When you make effort look like it's just easy, like it's nothing, that's when you create this thing called the illusion of mastery. By performing well with this apparent ease, you appear to be actually greater than you really are. And that creates that sort of gap of like, wait, this person is this good just by not trying. How good is he when he tries? When you're able to create this illusion of mastery because of concealing effort, you're perceived as somebody who has already solved the problem that you're trying to solve. And that is what people deem cool. That is perceptible mastery, even if you've not really got there yet. Because let's be honest, most things in life have an infinite skill ceiling, and you're never going to get to the end of it. There are people out there that try and be like, oh, please listen to me, look how good I am, look at all of this social proof. No, if you're just kind of chill about it and you conceal the effort to create this illusion, that's how people think, whoa, this guy really is good. He doesn't have to, show off all of the time and try and prove that he's competent. I think it was Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones that once said, the king who has to say, I am the king, is not the king at all. So if we look at this in action, well, Sue's one-to-one client sit-downs are a great example of this. He kind of just sits down, they ask him about something, and he'll run it through. He asks him some questions, and he just breaks everything down in detail on the whiteboard in real time. That is what makes a guy look like he knows what he's talking about. Sue didn't look like he was trying here. He was just putting all of his knowledge on the board, and it's like, wait, so when he actually pulls out his systems and his frameworks, that's going to mean that he's even better than this. And that's what creates that illusion of mastery. The same can be said about Hormozi. He is very well known for taking complicated business topics and making them seem really, really easy. I remember watching a video of his once where he talks about the idea of what is a brand. And he says, yeah, branding is just like what you're associated with. And it's like, wow, he's just took this complicated term that nobody seems to know how to define and giving you a really, really basic example. And this is what serves Hormozi really, really well. He's able to take these difficult things and make them sound really easy to understand to the average person. And that's what makes you think, well, okay, well, if he can break things down to be that simple, he must know way more than he's letting on. Because let's be honest, Hormozi's probably not the best marketer in the world, but the way he talks about marketing, it would make you think that he is, because he's able to make it seem so easy. And so I really want that to stick with you, the idea of you not really having to be the best, but have this illusion of mastery. This is also really, really prevalent in just like physical products, and I'm trying to limit, talking about physical products. I could talk about those all day, but I obviously want to keep this focused on the personal brand. But when it comes to, for instance, Rolex, this is the 1908. This is the best Rolex, available right now, and I stand by that. Maybe it's a bit of a controversial take. Rolex is not the best watchmaker. Other brands like Vacheron, Audemars, Patek, they are better at making watches than Rolex, but you would think that Rolex was the best because of the way that they position themselves. They always associate with these successful people. They always associate with people who value craftsmanship. They show you all of the intricacies of the movements and stuff, whilst still appearing like when I get to this level, I will buy a Rolex because it is the best. It is the symbol of success, even though there are better watches than that. And so when you've concealed effort, when you've communicated this illusion of mastery, perceived authenticity, which I will call it this because it will probably make more sense to you than the fluffy poetic language that Castiglione uses in his book. Castiglione talks about how Sprezzatura is the true fountain from which grace springs. Now, what the hell is this guy talking about? The best way I could say that we could word this is, I would say that having Sprezzatura, having effortless cool, is the true fountain from which perceived authenticity springs. And when I talk about perceived authenticity, I say because, it's just what people see. There's not really any way that we can have people know that you're being authentic when you're building a brand, but it's just people perceive it as being authentic. And when we say authenticity, it literally just means whether or not your identity and the behaviors, your expression are coherent. And from perceived authenticity, you have trust. The real enemy of perceived authenticity as a result of having effortless cool is what we'll call affectation. Now, affectation just means anything that you do that is unnatural seeming or not genuine. Let me ask you a question. What do business gurus and AI have in common? They both seem unnatural because the business gurus are putting on an act. The artificial intelligence is artificial. It's not a real person that you're talking to. That's why these guys seem kind of weird, maybe kind of stiff, sort of unnatural when they talk or when they act. Overdoing it, appearing like you are trying too hard, is affectation. So there's this really funny example in the book where there's this guy who's trying to do he's trying to demonstrate his dancing skills and showing how cool he is. And basically what happens is, as he's dancing, his slippers and his cloak falls off and he refuses to pick them up because he's trying to show that he's not thinking and he doesn't care. But he was trying too hard and everybody laughed at him and said, bro, what are you doing? So he was overdoing it, and that's what made it seem unnatural. So this is where the whole top of funnel look comes into the game. You can try too hard at appearing like you aren't trying. Don't end up like that guy who's trying to show off his cool dancing skills. Bro, the Renaissance is such a funny period of history. And that is how we are going to take the concept of Sprezzatura being effortlessly cool, having this studied level of nonchalance, and put it into your own brand. And that is how you build the kind of brand that is effortlessly cool. I appreciate you sticking around until the end, and if you're this interested in what it is that we were talking about, then you may be interested as well in what me and my team could do for you and your personal brand. So if you're interested in that, you can check the link in the description, apply to work with me if you want. If not, that's fine too, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.